All right, a disappointing week 2 win. Hard to say about a 38-10 win, but it feels like a little bit coming crashing down to earth after the Virginia Tech game. We talk about what happened Saturday night against SC State in our overreaction episode, which starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, what have you. Whenever you're listening to this, probably not Sunday morning because that has come and gone. But it is our, not instant overreaction episode. It's our overreaction episode from the South Carolina State game Saturday. We got a lot to get to. Before we do, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. And listen, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, all capital letters, for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get into today's show. It's going to be a reaction episode to the game from Saturday night. I don't feel great. I don't think a lot of you feel great either, so I don't feel like that's a crazy thing to say. We'll get to the good, the bad, and some of the stuff that's in between. And like I said, it's not, we usually like to have a live overreaction show as soon as the game ends. Didn't get to do it tonight or last night because 2.5 hour rain delay makes the game or pushes the game back from a start time standpoint. Willie B was drenched, and not just because people sweating like it usually is, just a weird just day of football, I think, in general, but in South Carolina especially. I'm going to give you my conscious stream of thoughts on this, and it almost feels like it almost felt like it was a bad dream type situation, because it's like, man, home opener, you're 1-0, you have to come off a big win in the Dome in downtown Atlanta against a Power 4 opponent. You were able to, like, the defense kept going out of the end zone, all that kind of stuff. Lenore Sellers looked good. Like you were able to end that game in a way that was like, okay, it's almost like a golf shot, like the things that keep make you coming back, right? It was like, yeah, they sputtered a little bit in the second, third quarter, but in the fourth quarter, they were able to put up 14 points. They pulled away, blah, blah, blah. There was some good in this game. Like, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like it was some like horrible scratch your way to a victory type of win for South Carolina. I'm going to tell you right now, I will probably be a little bit more inherently frustrated and negative about some of the stuff that we saw, because there was a lot left to be desired. I told you what I selfishly wanted going into the game. I wanted to see him put up 50 or 60 points. I wanted to see him put up 500, 600 yards of offense. We didn't come close to those things. 38-10. The offense only scored 17 of those. 600 yards of offense, you were able to scrape by with 253. You got outgained, okay? Now, part of that, I will tell you right off the bat, part of that with the 253 yards of offense, I don't really care about, because the moment the rain came in the way it did, there was a large part of it that was like, just either schedule it for Sunday, like you had to do a couple of years back, or just run the football and run the clock out. And that, because like, and maybe that's what they were trying to do. Just try, like, get out of here, because this is terrible. But the injuries that mounted up, the lack of confidence that you have offensively after what we saw, I mean, there's some frustrating things. Lenoris looked off for most of the night, especially in the passing game. I think part of that had to do with how wet the ball was, right? The defense looked good, I thought, at times. And I'll tell you again, there's positives to come from this. I know that I am an overly positive person when it comes to talking about this team. But a 20.1 QBR from Lenoris, 17 points on offense, which our buddy Brad Crawford pointed out. You got 3 games with Mike Shula as the OC, and what the offense has put up, he had 17 points offensively against Virginia Tech. He had 17 points offensively against South Carolina State. He had 17 points offensively against Illinois. You can make the case that even though it's the same amount of points, you've regressed offensively in terms of scoring production, because Illinois is a really good team, right? They were a good team in the bowl game last year. I think they won 9 games, program record. Virginia Tech is probably a better team than South Carolina State. Not as good as Illinois, probably better than South Carolina State. South Carolina State is an FCS team. There were some players on South Carolina State that I was really impressed with. They were not a bad football team by any means. But you scored 17 in each of those? Like, what? I mean, you need, at some point, you need something that shows you, hey, we are moving forward. We're taking a step forward. Because now what it feels like is you don't have a ton of confidence after this game. I lost my train of thought. So there are positive things that come out of this. Of course there are. There are also just so many things where you look at this and, like, I think the frustration comes from the expectations, and I think the expectations are fair from this team. Let me be also very transparent. I know that we're jumping all over the place today. We're recording this. I'm having to do stuff for the Saints game. Spencer Rattler just threw his first touchdown, which was awesome. They're looking great. So I'm a little bit all over the place, even more so than usual than I am. But I think that when you look at some of the stuff that's disappointing, I think it's all fair, right? Like, because the biggest concern going into this game is, like, what did we say? No injuries, right? And you got lit up. And that's the biggest frustration. You already had Kilgore and Collier on the sideline, right? And you had some people that were banged up. And when you had Brandon Cisse, Bakari Swain, Marky Anderson, Jocko Holman, Brady Hunt, Josiah Thompson, all leaving the games with injuries, and we don't know the extent of them yet. Shane Beamer is going to get into that in his teleconference later today. We'll have an update on that before tomorrow's show. My plan is to record another one of these tonight so we can get Monday morning out and hear from him about what he has to say for the injuries and stuff like that, and start prepping for the Vandy stuff. But I think it's you come off this win against Virginia Tech and you're like, man, that's what it can look like when you play a C-plus game, right? Like when you play a C-plus game. But what's frustrating is it feels like you played a C-plus game again, if that. And I know that stats don't tell the whole story, but you watched the game just like I did. And there were so many things that happened during that game that were concerning, because it's like, man, I get frustrated when I look at like, I'm not frustrated when I see incomplete passes from Lenoris. Like, that part doesn't bother me when it's been a all-out downpour for 2.5 hours. That part does not bother me. What I get frustrated about is the slow start to the offense, your inability to get any sort of explosive running plays going. Lenoris Sellers is the only player. Well, no, actually Harbor also had a carry that was over 12 yards or over 10 yards. But you had 2 carries on the entire night where you had over a 10-yard gain on the ground. And that may not sound like a big deal, but like against South Carolina State, you should be able to push them around a little bit more, right? Like Jordan Howell, like Russell Faison, like those are guys that you expect to be able to gain. I think I said what I wanted to see was 200-yard rushers. They had 30 and 21. They combined for 12 carries for 51 yards. That's not bad from a number standpoint. It's over 4 yards a carry, but 4.3 and 4.2 yards a carry respectively is not what I want to see against South Carolina State. I didn't need you to necessarily, put up the 60 that I said I selfishly wanted. What I did want to see was an offense that put up more than 17. And that's where the frustration comes in. And I think there's a lot of ways to look at this where it's like, well, at least you escaped without this. At least you have, something like this happen where it's like Lenoris had a great game. You just had a couple turnovers. It wasn't that. Like I said, I wanted to see the consistency of what you've been able to do continue on in the game. You won the turnover battle again. You're through 2 games and you haven't had a turnover. Knock on wood. But what concerns me is that you were able to – alarm's going off. This is chaos over here. What concerns me is the inability to push people around, and now you're going into a situation where you're banged up. The attrition in the secondary is terrifying. So I'm not going to sit here and be negative the entire time. But I'm kind of pissed. Because I think what I wanted to see was something different, right? Like I wanted to see you push someone around that you should be able to push around. I wanted to see something where it's like, even last week when you had there's a glimmer of hope. And to be clear, not glimmer of hope, but like something to hang your hat on. And to be honest, as stupid as this sounds, because it's Beaver Bowl, I didn't want it to be special teams. I didn't. There's a lot to hang your hat on, and when it comes to that, not even just with Bakari Swain. Mason Love might be the best punter in the SEC. He's been awesome. but it's very frustrating to see you only held the ball for 25 minutes. You got outgained in total yards by 17. You only had 253 yards of total offense. Guys, I think at halftime you had 107, and that was because you put up like 60 on the last drive or something crazy. Maybe it was like 40. I don't know, but like it was drastic at first. Bad on third downs, only 25%. There was just a lot to improve. So I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because I expected at the very least to go into this game against Vanderbilt with like, okay, they are progressing from last week and they're getting better. Maybe this is Old Dominion 2.0. Maybe this is, oh man, they look so bad against Old Dominion. Like, how are they going to figure out a way to beat Vandy? I don't know. And that sounds crazy to say, but Vandy was very impressive last night. And so we'll get to all that. But yeah, I mean, I'm frustrated because of what we saw. And it's mainly frustrating because it's now we're going into week 3, and I don't know if I can move off of anything where I can say, like, this looks better. I need you to score more than 17 points, Mike Shula. With what you have at your disposal, that shouldn't be difficult. Figure it out. We will be back. When we come back, we'll talk about the positives from that, from the game, and then we'll also give a quick look ahead later on to Vanderbilt, who, again, looked very, very good last night, Saturday night against Virginia Tech. Before we go into a break, I do want to give a shout-out to our friends at Supply House. And I tell you what, guys, it has been the opening whistle blows on a new repair. You get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts of your doorstep tomorrow. It's over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. I tell you what, if you need parts for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery, and you talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics that can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. All of it's there. All of it's at your disposal. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5. That's SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Also, want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Game Time, our favorite ticketing app on the market, with very good reason. College football's back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, all of it's the worst, and none of it happens at Game Time. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage, and it gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I tell you what, I pulled up Game Time last week, and a couple of quick taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about like your favorite events coming up, whether it's not even just football. If there's basketball coming up, if there's a theater thing, if a concert, any of those things you want to go see, I'm telling you right now, Game Time has it all, and they do it better than anyone else. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, let's get to some of the positives here, guys, because there were some. I thought that it was really, really good. And I don't even want to start the special teams thing because it's the most obvious. So let's give a credit to the defense, Clayton White's defense. Listen, you held a team to under 230 yards. You held a team to 1.8 yards per rush. I think that may not sound like a big deal. I know you gave up more yards than you gained, but the yards per rush thing, especially, this is, again, the things that you were most concerned about coming into the season. It wasn't the secondary, right? It wasn't anything like that. It was the front seven, front six, how you want to phrase it, the nickel flex defense, and say, hey, like, how are they going to figure out a way to not have people gash them because of everything they lost from last year? They've been able to do that. right? I thought the ends looked great last night. I thought the defensive ends, the edge rushers, everyone coming off the edge looked explosive, like they were shot out of a cannon. Love using that phrase, as you guys know. But it wasn't just Dylan Stewart. I mean, Dylan Stewart absolutely destroyed a running back during an RPO. He ended up, like, the quarterback ended up pulling the ball back out of his belly. But it was, I mean, goodness, just everyone at that position seemed like they had an incredible game, or at least they were in the backfield a ton, right? Obviously, scoring a touchdown on defense, huge. And you forced your third turnover of the season, and again, you had 0. Those are all positive things. And again, I think I point to the rush game, especially because even though you were very limited in what you were able to do offensively running the ball, you had 34 carries, right, for South Carolina State. They only averaged 1.8 yards per carry. I love that. Thought that was big. Pass game, listen, you were beat up in the secondary for one. I'm not trying to make an excuse here. I thought the quarterbacks for South Carolina State were pretty dang good. And I tell you what, even if I'm overreacting to that, which fine, say that I am. I overreact to a lot of stuff. You guys know that by now. Even if I'm overreacting to that, one thing I don't feel like I'm overreacting about at all is the things that they did in the passing game with specifically with how athletic their quarterbacks were, rolling out of the pocket, being able to move the pocket with their feet, being able to evade the rush at times, get outside the pocket, all those things. I thought that stuff that was very beneficial in the long run for this week, especially because it's stuff that you're going to see with Diego Pavia. Like that's the kind of stuff he does and does so well. So I thought that at the very least, that made me happy that you had a situation where, like, you had a little bit of baptism by fire there with quarterbacks that were very, very accurate on the run last night. Still, don't love the fact they were 18 of 28. That's not exactly where we want to be. 9 of 14. I can't even do the math off the top of my head. Let's just, you know what? Let's just trust our calculator, like I never do. But yeah, allowing 64.3% completion percentage when you gave up 42.9 last week. I think part of that's because your secondary was a little bit in shambles with all of the injuries. And you also got to see a ton of guys play, by the way. You saw a ton of guys play. It never felt like this game was going to necessarily be in doubt. It never felt like they were going to do anything, or they were going to have anything that was going to necessarily beat South Carolina, right? Like that never happened. And I don't think you saw any of that panic from the coaching staff, which is why so many players got so many opportunities. Vakari Swain, and let's talk about the special teams. Beamer ball is alive and well. And I tell you what makes me the happiest about where this team's at is I still fully believe that the offense can be very, very good. There's just too many weapons for it not to be. Like, schematically, you would have to have a colossal failure to not be in a situation where you aren't able to put a lot of points on the board consistently. Like if this offense puts up 17 points per game and that's it consistently, then yeah, I would think that's a problem. You've averaged 31 through 2 games, but again, you think about how many of those have been from your offense versus your defense and special teams. Now, I tell you what, I don't think that's a bad problem to have, and I'll tell you again why. Remember, one of the concerns that Shane Beamer kept voicing going into the season. Yeah, I don't know, man. We have a lot of people to replace in special teams. We're replacing everybody. Punt returner, punter. We'll stop there for now. But all those things, punt returner, punter, like those are key positions, right? Especially with Beamer ball. And all you've seen Vakari Swain do is, I'm assuming, lead the country. I haven't checked the stats, but I'm assuming lead the country in touchdown returns or punt returns for touchdown. I mean, he's got 3 in 2 games. So that is something, I think. And also he had 3 in like 3 quarters, which is crazy. Or 3, because he had 1 in the 4th quarter against Virginia Tech, and then he had these other ones as well. So I thought that was big. Mason Love, by the way, I hate to use a pun. Don't do it, Chris. I'm going to do it. Love me some Mason Love. 10 punts on the year. Feels like too many. 5 in each game. Or I'm sorry, not 5 in each game. But 10 punts on the year. Yeah, he does have 5 in each game. He's averaging 48.4 yards per punt. 48.4 yards per punt. Listen, that was a big question mark coming into the year. And I know punting is not something, it's not sexy. We don't want to talk about that. Of course, we want to see Lenore Sellers throw for 4 touchdowns a game and all that kind of stuff. And Nick Harbor have more, 65-yard catches and all that stuff. But there are times when you are at this level, like obviously in the schedule that they have, where you're going to need to have like every phase working. And you don't have that right now. So thank God that punting isn't a catastrophe, right? Thank God the punting part has been a thing that hasn't been figured out, or the return game hasn't been a total liability where you've got someone back there that's fumbling punts. You've seen it happen all over college football this year. Happened in the Oklahoma game last night. Happening, I think, in a couple other games too. Like you're having those are things that a lot of people struggle with. You haven't had that yet. Knock on wood. But like Mason Love being an untested, unproven, and really unknown coming into this team and doing what he's done, that's huge. I mean, like 48.4 points per game or 48.4 yards per punt is awesome. It's awesome. So I thought that was good. I think there are still signs of this. Like those two things are obviously very good. I was impressed with the defense for the most part, right? Like I think that you played a ton of people. You played a ton of people in that game last night. You go look at the stat sheet, everybody that got in, and I'll start offensively, right? Offensively, Luke Doty got in, didn't get to complete a pass, but you had 8 different people with at least one rushing attempt. You had a lot more people involved in the passing game, at least. I mean, not a lot more, but Mazio had 2 catches for 13 yards. Vandrevius Jacobs was your leading receiver. Nick Harbor did not record a catch, and usually that would be something that would be bothersome, I think. But Vandrevius Jacobs, 4 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown. Donovan Murph, 2 catches for 39 yards, continues to be explosive with a long of 27. You also had another explosive play in the passing game to Jacobs for 35 yards. Mazio getting you good yardage. Michael Smith in the passing game catching one pass for 13 yards. Like you were able to have some explosives or some bigger plays in that part. You also got the running backs involved, Brian Rowe. Like I thought that was great. But what really stood out to me the most is this. And let's just count these together. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. 27 players on defense last night recorded at least one statistic. You didn't have a single player that had more than 6 tackles. Justin Okoronkwo, Fred Johnson, both ended up with 3. It's not great, but at the same time, I think we know what to expect from those guys that we saw the first week. I will also tell you this. I brought this up before, and I'm going to bring it up again. My main point here is this. Yeah, you would love to see them have better stats, right? The stat sheet, sure, absolutely. But getting that many players into a game and getting valuable experience is also going to pay dividends in the long run. And in a game like this, it did not feel at any point that Shane Beamer was, no, I want to run at least one more set on offense. I want to make sure we get Sellers a little bit more, prepared on this. I want to make sure we have our starters out here on defense at least a little bit longer so they can do this. Like that was not the case. Like there was no sense of, I'm not going to say urgency because that's not the right word, sense of necessity to have any of your starters, especially on offense, be forced in a situation where it's like, we've got to get a little bit better. They need to stay in for at least one more series and work on this. That was never the case. Like this was very much a foot off the gas. We know what we have. There's no way we're going to lose. And honestly, to be frank, they scored 10 points. I think that if South Carolina scored 13, I don't think Shane Beamer would have cared. That was a feeling I got. After the game, he had the comment about the injuries, and it felt like he was kind of over it. I brought this stat up to you earlier, too. Listen, Brian Thomas Jr., Dez, Dylan Stewart, like Tamon Clowney, like all of those guys all had at least one tackle for loss. He had 7 total in the game. They combined for 5.5 of them. Those edge rushers were in the backfield all night, and that's a positive as well. So the big thing moving forward, we'll figure out what the injuries are. Again, the quote was, someone asked about the injuries. The exact quote was this: "It'll be too long to name guys, so don't even ask. It's not good." Obviously, we were down Jalen Kilgore going into the game. Brandon Cisse got hurt early in the game. Third team nickel is Jaquel Holloman. He got hurt in the first quarter. We're literally down to our 4th nickel. We had some other injuries as well. Brady Hunt, Josiah Thompson, the defensive backs. I'll have a better answer for you Sunday night in the teleconference. But that part was not good. That part was not good. You do not want to have that be where you're at going into the season, considering what's coming down the pipe with Vandy, Mizzou, and Kentucky. Games are all winnable, and you get 2 of them at home, but also teams are going to push you a little bit more than South Carolina State did, and it's not where you want to be if you have that many injuries. So let's wrap up the show with a quick little look at Vandy, and then we will close out today. All right, we're back. Let's finish up today's show. It has been a fun one, been all over the map. I would say a fun one. A lot more negativity than I usually like to have. Before we get started, I do want to, or before we close out the show, I do want to give a quick shout out to one last sponsor today. It is my favorite sponsor because they make the back and the front of my head look pretty. I tell you what, these hats that we've got, I'll pan the camera over here because it's pretty sick. Maybe I should have done a show like that. That would have been way better. What are we doing here, idiot? Okay. Quick question for all of you, for all college football fans out there. If you could go back in time, sit in the front row of your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? And I said hat. I did say hat. For me, it would 1,000% be the game. These aren't just hats. They're same vintage styles that we wore back in the 80s and 90s. And I love that like a lot of you are starting to bring these back, and it's happy for me because it's just my childhood. That's what we all wore, and they were the best. And I tell you what, they go for the same price they did back then. When you use the code Locked On, your vintage hat that looks just like this, whether you want the Cox one, the South Carolina one, I know this is the one that's most popular. This one to me is my all-time favorite. It always will be. It's only $16.99. So head to thegamecaps.com. That's thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use the code Locked On for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. All right, let's close out today's episode with this little look ahead at Vandy. And I don't know if any of you guys watched Vandy last night. Probably not. It was it's just the way the South Carolina thing was set up, especially with it being on SC Plus. The whole thing was just, I hated the setup for the most part. Also, I know a lot of you are looking at this right here, this bobblehead that my sweet angel of a mother got me as an engagement present. I don't know how skinny she thinks I am, but that is different than I thought. But anyway, you get to see the whole thing. This is my favorite thing, by the way. This is a Morgan Freeman bobblehead. So we got some good SEC stuff in here as well. Anyway, let's close out today's show with this. If you were unable to see the Vandy game last night, there's a lot to like about what Vandy did. They go into Blacksburg, which on the road, obviously, they won 44-20. Now, same team that you've already played, a lot of familiarity there. They obviously beat them by more. Not where my concern is at all, but the concern is more so the fact that, man, they went in, they were down 20-10 at halftime, outscored them 34-0 in the second half. But that's not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is, I mean, Pavia looked great as he always does. I think he completed 75 or 67% of his passes, right around 200 yards. I mean, Pavia is going to stay between 70% completion percentage, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had an interception last night, and that's where my biggest concern starts. My biggest concern about Vandy is this. They're a good football team. This is crazy that we're having this conversation, if you watched SEC for a long time, saying, I'm concerned about Vandy, here's why. But they're a good football team, and they're a really well-coached football team. And one of the things that usually is a good indicator of that is how good the adjustments are that you make during halftime, right? Vandy was down 20-10. They win 44-20. That should tell you a lot right there. They put up 34 points in the second half. They allowed only 21 yards of offense from Virginia Tech in the second half. They dominated the clock. They controlled the ball for 22 of the final 30 minutes in the second half. I mean, it was a clinic they put on. But what's scary is they didn't win the turnover battle. This wasn't some like sloppy game from Vanderbilt or from Virginia Tech that led to this. It was domination from Vanderbilt. I think they lost the turnover battle 2-1 or something like that. There might have been a fumbled punt involved there too, like I mentioned earlier. And they had 11 penalties. And those are things that usually are difference makers in games. And maybe this is an extreme outlier, but not only was it not a difference maker in this game, but they were able to bury Virginia Tech. I mean, bury Virginia Tech. So those are some things right off the bat that concern me, because they also played what felt like for 60 minutes, probably a B- game or a B game. But even with all of their own self-induced mistakes, they were still able to win by 24. So there is a tall task at hand coming into Williams-Brice Stadium this weekend. I feel up for it. I know the rankings just came out. Should feel good about that. South Carolina did move up a spot in the coaches poll to number 10, and I believe they dropped. They're number 11 in the. I think they dropped a spot to number 11 in the AP poll. So you are once again top 10 team in one, not top 10 in the other. It's also kind of crazy if you look at what they were able to do. The SEC, that is, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams ranked in the top 25. It's got to be a record. That's got to be a record for the conference. So anyway, Vanderbilt, not one of them. They will be trying to put themselves on the map for that this weekend, I'm sure. That is all for today's episode. I appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and I will see you guys either tonight or tomorrow for another episode, starting the week of Vandy prep going into this week. Appreciate y'all. Until then, go Cox.